Hello, people. This is a dream I had on July 18th, 2011. I wanted to share with you. I had written it down basically the next day when it happened, but I want to read it to you guys now. Uh, so I was on some kind of bus, and I think I was trying to get home on this bus. I remember something about the driver not letting people off at certain places. Um, and he finally let me off at some random place, and I vaguely remember other things that happened on the bus, but I don't remember anything. Um, I was on the bus. After I got off the bus, I remember being in some kind of large city with tall buildings everywhere, and things began to happen. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe meteors or asteroids from the sky, or spacecraft that I couldn't see yet, shooting or what, but I saw things like missiles hitting buildings and causing explosions. At first, it was off in the distance, and the people closer to where it was sort of saw it happening, but nobody was really doing anything because it wasn't by them. They were just kind of like observing from away, and like they were detached from it, like thinking, they was just like watching it on TV or something. People have just become so detached from things that they don't even respond to anything anymore. And and then it started getting closer. Um, the buildings being shot at were a lot closer. Like the shooting to the buildings that were closer to us, and the big chunks of the buildings were falling off, and whole buildings collapsed, and just like all this destruction. And things are kind of fuzzy here. But I think it was more or less still trying to find my way home, but trying to dodge being smashed by falling debris or other stuff you'd expect to go through during mass chaos. I also vaguely remember someone or something was chasing me or following me or something. I'm not sure. I think during the course of me trying to get home, I'd actually gone through several buildings, like in one door out the other, because of blocked streets and alleys. I think I vaguely remember seeing various people hiding out in the buildings, and some of the buildings seemed more secure than others, like some people had prepared their building for just sort of an occasion. I remember there were more details to being in some of these buildings. One in particular, it's like stuff that happened, but I can't. In writing this down, I couldn't remember details. I remember it as I eventually left one of these buildings after a short time of doing something in it. Um, at some point in time, I remember finding my wife and being relatively speaking happy that I found her, and I remember saying something to the effect of "this is the end." And I remember saying something about our children, how it's too bad they weren't here, nor could we get to them, because we for some reason, it was just us in another city, and the kids were at home. Um, I remember being in some kind of park at this point. It was like a small park, like what you'd see in the middle of downtown in a big city, um, I think I think my wife and I were sitting on a bench watching all the chaos unfold, pretty much resigned to the fact that there was no point in running around like chickens with our heads cut off. Then I stood and looked up in the sky, and there were these huge things. One looked like a giant, like amoeba or paramecium, or just like those little microscopic single-cell organisms. But it was like, think of it like, you look down in a microscope and you see them like floating around in the water. It was kind of like that, but like just huge and in the sky. Um, I mean, it was like large. It filled up like a good chunk of the sky. It was like as big as like how big like clouds were, bigger. It was slowly moving around, and I think I saw lasers or something shooting out of it, but I'm not entirely sure. It was like shooting something. Then I remember being in a building, but I'm not sure if I went there or if I was always in there, or if some kind of dream teleportation thing happened or what. You're dreaming, next thing you know, you're in this different situation, that sort of thing. I just remember being inside some building on the bottom or basement floor, and the bench I was sitting on in the park was still there. but the bench that I was sitting in the park, it was there next to me, but I was somehow in the bottom of this basement floor of this building now. And then I had an awareness of the building collapsing, and I was about to be crushed, and there was nothing I could do about it because I was about to be crushed in like 2 seconds, and I saw the walls around me give and the ceiling give, and I was crushed and I was dead. And it was like when you are asleep and you first wake up but are still half asleep and you're just laying there, kind of aware of the real world surroundings but still kind of sleeping. It was kind of like that. Um, but then I remember being in some kind of open area, like maybe I was back in the park, I don't know, but with a lot of buildings around us demolished. I'm not sure. Um, but the area seemed a bit bigger than before, and I saw lots of people running around, and lots of people or things or something in the air, and it seemed like there were some kind of aliens or crafts or something trying to take people up with them. I'm not really sure, I can't remember exactly, but then I remember seeing this one thing in the sky. It was kind of translucent and glowing, and looked kind of like a fetus in a womb. Um, it seemed a lot different than the other things in the sky. And I remember reaching up and grabbing it by an arm or something, and it was taking me up in the sky, and I remember someone else grabbed onto my legs when I was being lifted up to hitch a ride to. I don't know who the person was. I didn't look down or anything, didn't try to shake them off or nothing, but I remember when I grabbed onto this fetus looking thing, I felt warm and fuzzy all over, filled with a sense of peace. Next thing I remember, I was somewhere else entirely. I remember that I thought I was in heaven, or at least some kind of afterlife for sure. It seemed to be some kind of processing station. I was standing in line, not really knowing what was going on, but I wasn't particularly bothered or afraid or anything. I remember getting up to some counter, and there was some kind of female at the counter, and she told me something, but I don't really remember exactly what. Something to do with getting new bodies or something. And I remember looking in a mirror, and I looked kind of like a woman. Um, well, I looked more feminine in features or something, like, seemed like a new body. Everybody seemed to have a new body or skin of some kind that seemed vaguely male or female. But overall, I sort of got the impression that people were kind of genderless. Like it was like if you were to mix a man and a woman sort of thing. And so it wasn't really like I was turning into a woman. It was more like people, there was no gender anymore or something. I don't know. These were kind of passing observations. I didn't really ask about it. It didn't seem particularly important. It wasn't really my focus in the dream, I suppose. Now things start getting really fuzzy from here. Just make a whole lot of sense or have a particular order. Just random bits and pieces I remember about being in this place. I remember being in some big long area, kind of like an airport, but it wasn't an airport. I was I guess I was supposed to just wait there. There were tables or kiosks or something in the center of the area, and some giant TV screens hanging from the ceiling. They were displaying numbers or something, and someone told me I was supposed to go up to the kiosk where when my number came up. I think I remember my number was 22. Um. On a side note, when I woke up, I started wondering if this was an important number, like a date, like when stuff was gonna go down, or the day I die or something. But in retrospect, while I was writing this, I realized that 22 could have totally just been some kind of dream perception thing because my birthday is on the 22nd. So who knows? I'm not trying to put any kind of importance on that date or number 22 or anything like that. Just I just considered it a random number. Um, I remember talking to some random guy, and I vaguely remember him giving me some kind of advice or explaining some things to me or something, but I don't remember any details. I remember seeing my number come up on one of the screens, and I went to the table, and I don't know why, but I was supposed to stack some things and put it in some sort of container. The stuff on the table I was supposed to stack looked like a bunch of popsicle sticks, but most of them were kind of twisted or broken in half, lengthwise, or shredded in general. I think it was some kind of test or something to figure out what kind of jobs all of us were supposed to go do. like an aptitude test or something, I guess. I don't know. I remember there was some girl at the table with me, and it seemed like she had been there a while. Like, I don't even know how long. But she was telling me what I was supposed to do. I don't think she really worked there. I think she was there kind of in the same boat as me, but she had just been there a lot longer. Um, and I remember trying to stack these mangled up popsicle sticks, but I couldn't really do it. And I remember a guy coming up from behind me and showing me, and he was doing it, and he was showing me how to do it, and I kind of perceived him to be Jesus, and people around me were kind of reacting that way. And when he was showing me, I seem to recall that he was showing me with like forks and spoons, like like setting a fork down curved up and then stacking the spoons on top of it. Spoons curved down. I don't know what any of that means or any kind of symbolism, but there you have it. Um, and I remember something happening. I don't know what. Something about the girl at the table I was at. She was finally being called for something, and she was kind of worried because she had been there for so long and didn't know what she was finally supposed to do. Then I told her that her job was to be here and help people at this station, and she seemed happy. I have no idea why it was me that told her, but whatever. Um, and I remember these people or these beings came out from some corridor. They were humanoid, but kind of dressed in black. They had they had sharp features like a hawk. I think maybe they were angels or something. Not sure, but I kind of remember not all of them were particularly nice. I'm not sure I would say evil, but I don't know. Some of them seemed kind of angry for some reason. Just seemed like it wasn't all about the warm and fuzzies with them or something. I don't know. I remember that as they were standing there, and then eventually moving along, I was standing there looking right at them, even looking right at their faces as if to make eye contact, but at the same time feeling that they seemed like they seemed like the type of beings that you didn't really want to mess with them or look at them or draw attention to yourself or nothing, but I was doing it anyway, and I don't know, they seemed pretty fierce. Anyways, that's about all I remember, and that is the end, and now I have spoken it.